Alright then, it's Sunday time for another episode of Record Collecting with the Quill. The theme for today is great comeback albums. There's tons of comeback albums in the music history, and you can always debate what constitute a comeback album. Do you have to be as a band disband, or have you gone fishing for 15 years or whatever? But I've chosen some of my favorites, and you can consider them comeback albums in a kind of a different ways. But anyway, I'm rambling now. Let's start. But before, you know the drill. Make sure to subscribe and also to share with your friends who you think might enjoy watching this. So, first out, the mother of all comeback albums, the one that started it all, you have to mention it. This one, the Elvis Presley in 1968 NBC special. You know the history. Elvis was fantastic artist in the 50s, and then he turned Hollywood, making bad movies for a long time. But then they decided to kind of restart his music career and showing everyone what a great singer he was. And he really did a great performance here. I particularly enjoyed this small group setting when he's playing with his old band again, looking slim and mean in a black leather outfit. That is truly Elvis. But there's some other great performances here as well. He did with an orchestra in front of an audience as well, and he really shines here as a singer. Unfortunately, he went back to doing movies, and then he toured all Las Vegas. I quite enjoy some of that stuff as well. But for a brief moment here, he really showed what he was all about when he started out. So the first pick is the Elvis 1968 NBC special comeback. Next one is a kind of a forgotten one, I guess. This is the artist Gary U.S. Bonds with the album Dedication. For those of you who's not familiar with Gary U.S. Bonds, he had a string of hits in the early 60s and had quite a big fan base. And two big fans of his in the early 60s were Bruce Springsteen and Miami Steve. And when his career faded, Bruce Springsteen and E Street Band used to play 2:45 quite a lot as an encore in the 70s. And then in the early 80s, they decided to help him out doing this comeback album in 1981. Bruce and E Street Band came just from doing The River and a couple of leftover tracks, which they gave to Gary on this album. And they are also playing on the album. And this is basically Gary U.S. Bonds with Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band as a backup band. It's a great party album, this one. Some great tracks. As I said, Bruce gave him 2 tracks, You're Blonde and This Little Girl, and there's also a couple of covers here with the Beatles and Bob Dylan as well. And I quite enjoy this one. It's usually quite easy to find. You can always find it in a sales bin or something. And if you do, buy it, because there's some great tracks on this one. Gary U.S. Bonds, Dedication. Next one is the mother of all comeback albums in the heavy style of music. The Deep Purple Perfect Strangers album from 1984. You know the drill. This is a comeback of the Mark II, the famous Mark II lineup. They did the classic Machine Head in rock, made in Japan, and then they went separate ways and had success with on their own, with Richie with Rainbow and Ian Gillan with Gillan, and Ian Pace and John Lord continued to play with both Whitesnake, and they played with Gary Moore, and Roger Glover also teamed up with Richie in Rainbow. But in 1984 they decided to reunite and made a really great album, this one. And for a brief moment in time they seemed to enjoy themselves again, but quite soon things started to go sour again, and you know the rest is history. They made one more album, and then Gillan got booted and went back and forth there for a while. But this one is, as I said, for a brief moment you could really see what what a powerhouse Deep Purple, the Mark II lineup really were. You have fantastic tracks here in Knocking at Your Back Door and Perfect Strangers and Under the Gun, and yeah, tons of great stuff. So you probably know that one if you're listening to this channel. Next one, in the same vein as Bruce helping Gary Lewis Bonds out. This is Roger McGuinn from the Byrds, and I think it's in the year of '91, I believe this one. He got help from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers doing his first solo album in, I think, almost 15 years. And this is the album called Back From Rio. And what this is essentially Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers backing Roger McGuinn up and also helping out with co-writing a couple of tracks. And you also have other famous artists helping out. You have Elvis Costello, you have David Crosby and Chris Hillman from the Byrds as well. And I really enjoy this one. I bought it when it came out, so for me it's a real classic, and I just listened to it today and I still enjoy it. It's as I said, it's the Byrd mixed with Tom Petty and Heartbreakers. You have Roger's quite distinctive voice, and you also have lots of 12-string Rickenbacker guitar, which we love, don't we? So check that one out. Tom Petty is also singing lead vocals here on this track King of the Hill, which he helped co-write as well. So I think it's the fourth pick, isn't it? Roger McGuinn, Back From Rio. Next one is quite I don't know, it's not that famous, I guess, but it's Glen Campbell. Glen was one of the original Wrecking Crew session guys in LA, playing on albums with just about everyone from Beach Boys to Elvis Presley and so on. And he had a really successful solo career as well, with a string of hits: Rhinestone Cowboy, Wichita Lineman, Galveston. Then he turned Christian and made TV shows and lots of different stuff. And was quite famous in the country scene. But in 2008, he got back with his old record label and made his first real pop record in ages. And this is a truly great album. He covers everyone from U2 to Tom Petty to Foo Fighters, and he makes a really good version of Good Riddance, Time of My Life by Green Day as well. And you have some famous guest musicians here as well, some guys from Cheap Trick and from Jellyfish as well. He has a fantastic voice. I've always enjoyed his voice, but there's also some great guitar playing. He sadly died a couple of years ago after battling dementia, and there's a great documentary about that. He continued to tour while battling dementia, as I said, and it's quite heartbreaking to see him being totally lost outside of stage. But whenever he sings and plays guitar, he's back to normal again. So really worth seeing if you can find it. So Glen Campbell, meet Glen Campbell from 2008. And the last one, we have to end with something really heavy, and this is the comeback album from Alice in Chains, Black Gives Way to Blue, the first album they did after Lane Staley died. And this is a truly great album. It's one of my favorite albums from the last 20 years or so. You have everything you want here in an Alice in Chains album. You have the heaviness, you have some great playing, you have great songwriting, and great singing, and Alice in Chains typical harmony vocals as well. Thoroughly enjoyable, this one. If you haven't heard it, you really have to check it out. It's, as I said, probably one of the best albums in the last 20 years or so. Alice in Chains, Black Gives Way to Blue. Now, that was my picks. What are your picks for comeback albums? There's tons of them, and I've probably missed quite a few of them. Please leave comments in the comment section. What are your favorite comeback albums? And as usual, I put a couple of tracks from each album in the Spotify playlist. You find the link down below. And also make sure to follow us on social media. It's the QUILL Sweden, but I guess you know that already by now. So that's it for today. See you all again next Sunday. It's getting hot in here. Anyway, bye for now.